everyone, welcome back to the Relax and Craft YouTube channel. My name's Fleur and today we're going to be learning all about macrame square knots. So the square knot is this beautiful knot formation that we can see here, which creates this beautiful, almost like a Greek key effect in your cords. Now believe it or not, all four of these bracelets have used that same method, and you can see just how different they all look when they're with the different kinds of way that you can knot around the beads. So they are all using square knots, but sometimes we've used like a full square knot in between, half a square knot, and this one, the square knots sit underneath, well, the cords sit underneath rather than around the side like we can see here. So we create completely different looks, all using the same technique. Now the great thing about macrame bracelets is you don't need a metal clasp if you don't want to. You can create your sliding knot exactly the same as what we created the bracelet with, so it's actually all integral in one piece of the bracelet and looks completely seamless when it's done up. And we have these cords here making it fully adjustable for any size wrist which wants to wear it. So what we're going to need to create these beautiful pieces are cords. So we can use any kind of cord really. Whatever cord you've got, you can probably macrame with. I personally love the braided cord, the nylon braided cord. I find this absolutely brilliant. This is a 0.8. I like 0.8 upwards really. You can macrame with any diameter of cord and any kind of cord, natural or man-made cords. The one that I find them more tricky with, if I'm being honest, is the satin cord, just because it is, or I think sometimes it's called rat tail cord, because it's quite slippy with its satiny effect. It can be quite difficult to close the knots and to keep them closed before your next knot goes in place. But it's not impossible, and it does look beautiful when it's done. It's just a little bit trickier when you start with. So if you start with something like a braided cord or a nylon cord, you'll find with its grippy nature, it is so much easier to learn with. So the other thing that we're going to need is our beads, which are going to go onto our piece. So we can see here I've just used a focal bead in this one, and I've got two little beads at the end of my clasp. Now these are really integral part, the two little beads at the end. They are going to weigh down the actual clasp itself, so the clasp is going to be easier to open and close because you've got something to hold on to. They're going to weigh down those two little bits of cord as well, so it hangs nicely, and also as well that little bit of decoration. And you can go as far as to make things like little leaves at the end as well, just to give that little bit of decorative edge to those pieces as well. So tool wise, what we're going to need is we're going to need something to cut our cord with, so a pair of scissors. We're going to need something to seal the ends of the cords once we've finished. So if I just bring this one back here, where we've cut the cords away, you can see that we need to either seal these ends or we need to glue these ends. So you can either use something like a jewellery making glue. So this one is your hypo cement, but you could use your E6000, your Zapper glue, anything like that. I tend to stay away from super glue just because it makes it quite brittle when it's dried. So I tend to stay away from that. I tend to stick with the jewellery glues. We're going to need something, so if you don't want to use the glue, you could also use something like a thread zapper. And this is like a little electric end on here. There's batteries inside, and what this is going to do, it's going to actually melt the end, so it just puts a little bit of heat, a little bit like a cigarette lighter in the car, if you remember cigarette lighters in cars, that kind of thing. So it's just going to melt the edge, and you can see there it's just melted it and sealed it, and it just stops any fraying that can happen at the end there. So we can use our thread zapper or our glue. Now if you're using something like a nylon or a man-made fibre, you can also melt the ends of your pieces to make needles, which can help with threading your pieces, your beads onto your cord. So something like a barbecue lighter, and if we melt our cord and then just gently pull, we can create a fabulous little needle to help. I just cut that away. We can create that little needle, and you can see it's quite hard little needle there on the end, and that can help with threading your beads onto your cord. Or if you had something like a big eye beading needle, something like that, that will also help you get those beads onto the cord if you're putting beads onto the cord. The other thing that we're going to need is something to macrame on. So you can either use something like a macrame board. So you can see here the mini macrame board. I don't tend to use the side with the grid on it. I tend to use the other side, but that's entirely up to you. They tend to have two sides on them. If you've got a proper macrame board, they don't stay clean for long. So if you have got white cords, that kind of thing, and your board is dirty, just take the time just to clean it, or you can cover it in something like a cling film just to make sure that the white or the pale cords don't get dirty from your board, which is another reason why I don't use this side, just in case any of these inks come away. If you haven't got a macrame board, don't worry. You can use something like a clipboard, or this is the back of my necklace board with two bulldog clips. All we need is a flat surface and something to be able to connect our cords to it. So you can see here with these two big bulldog clips, I can just clip my cords in place, and then I could use this to macrame on. So you don't need specialist tools at all. You probably have got something knocking around in the house that you can use. So like I say, a piece of board, clipboard, something like that, a couple of bulldog clips, and you're good to go. So to get started, we're going to have a piece of cord which you are going to call the lazy cord, okay, or the lazy strand. If I just bring back this bracelet. So a lazy strand is the strand that is part of the clasp, so these little toggles to pull the clasp tighter and shorter, and you can see it here as well underneath the actual sliding clasp itself. So I just pull these out of the way. So this is your, what we call your lazy strand, and it runs all the way through your bracelet. You can see it going into the bead there. So it runs all the way through to the other side. So it's just one long piece of cord, which is longer than the wrist circumference that you're making the bracelet for, plus I would say a couple of inches on either side for your toggle clasp. So if you're making a 7-inch bracelet, I would probably take about 10-11 inches of your lazy cord. You can always cut this down at the end, but it's better to have more and cut it down rather than having not enough and having to start again. So your lazy cord is the cord that goes all the way through, and this is the cord that we're going to add some beads on if we want our bracelet to have this effect. Okay, so you can see that the cord is either going around the beads or underneath the beads, but it's going to give you this effect. Okay, so you can see like so. So all these beads are sat on the lazy cord, okay, the lazy strand that's going through the middle. So just for demo purposes, I'm going to use some really bright colours so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm just going to cut myself just a little bit of that, and I'm going to attach it just onto my board. Now if you have got a macrame board, the way that you would attach is just down through the slots here, so you can see it goes onto the other side, and then I just like to weave it in and out of the top and bottom of the board just to keep it secure. Okay, so this here is my lazy strand. Now like I say, if I was going to put beads on it, this is where I would put the beads onto. Now the next cord is the cord that actually creates the knots themselves. So this is either the cord that goes around the beads or knots onto itself to create the actual square knot itself, and this is called the working cord. Okay, so I'm going to use pink for the working cord. Now for the amount of working cord that we need at least 3 times the length of the lazy cord. Okay, so if your lazy cord is, let's say 10 inches long, we're going to need at least 30 inches of working cord. So always 3 times the amount of lazy cord for your working cord. Okay, so I'm just going to take some here. So I'm not going to take the full amount that I need, just so that it stays in shot when I'm demoing. So I'm just going to bring that to the center. Now we need to attach our working cord onto our lazy cord. So what we're going to do is lifting up the lazy cord, and I'm going to place one side of my working cord through underneath. I need to make sure that I've got equal amounts of working cord on either side. So I'm just bringing the 2 ends together so that they sit now either side of the lazy cord, and I'm going to tie just an overhand knot, so crossing them over. So make a cross at the top with both of your cords, and then just bring one underneath to create that little knot, and then bringing that all the way down. We're knotting this in place. Just make sure that you don't take too much cord to one side or one to the other. You've got equal amounts of cord on either side. Now when we're looking at the length of our lazy cord, don't forget we always need to make sure that we've left enough of our lazy cord that we can add those 2 inches on at the end. So you can see here that I've got that 2 inches here where I can attach my clasp to when I need to, but just make sure that you've got that at the top. So if you've only got a tiny little bit at the top, make sure you come a little bit further down so you start your bracelet and you've still got that amount for your clasp at the back. So to start our macrame square knot, we need to work on either side of our cord. Now I'm right-handed, so I always start on my right-hand side. So to help you remember which side we're working from, because we work right side to left side and then left side to right side, right, left, right. So to help you remember that, what I'm going to do is on my dominant side, I am going to place a knot in the end of this working cord. Okay, so like I say, I'm right-handed, so I'm just going to tie a little knot on the end of the right-hand side cord. And that's going to help me to remember which side I'm working on. Now I'm just going to zoom you in just a little bit so that you can see clearly what I'm doing. So I'm going to take the cord with the knot in it, okay, and I'm going to bring it over the top of my lazy cord, so the green cord. So my working cord has come over the top of my lazy cord, making a letter P. Okay, I'm now going to leave that cord to the side. I'm going to take the cord which was on the left and I'm going to bring that over the top of that working cord with the knot in the end, the one that was started on the right. I'm bringing it over the top, and now I need to bring it underneath the bridge where the working cord and the lazy cord cross. So I'm just going to put my knotting awl underneath there so you can see. So it's going to come in this direction underneath where the two cross over and into the letter P. Okay, so with the same left hand cord, so it's come around over the top of the cord which is forming the letter P, and it's going underneath the bridge of where they both cross into the letter P, and I'm just going to take them both cords and just start to tighten that knot. That now is 1/2 of my square knot completed, I'm now going to do exactly the same on the left hand side of the board. So I'm going to bring the left hand cord across to form a letter Q. So if we imagine that was a Q, I'm then going to take the cord from the right hand side, and it's the one without the knot in it. I'm going to bring it over the top of the cord that's forming the letter Q, and again I'm going underneath the bridge where the both cords cross and into the letter Q. So I'm just going to place that underneath, bringing it through and tighten. Now we're not pulling really tight, we're just tightening it enough that we can't see the cords underneath, okay? So we're just going to give that a little push up, and you can see there we've got our first full square knot. So I'm going to do another one now. Now if I can't remember which side I'm working on, whether it was a letter P or a letter Q that I've just done, we're looking for the side with the knot in it. Okay, so remember we tied a knot in it to start with. It's always the side with the knot in it that we're going to do next, okay? So it's on my right hand side, so I know that that is a letter P. So right hand side of the board, letter P, left hand side of the board, Q. So I've done my letter P, I'm bringing my left cord over the top and underneath that bridge and into the letter P, and tighten. And then I know it's my letter Q next, because on my left hand side you can see that's the side with the knot in it. So my letter Q is next, bringing my cord over the top, so it's gone all the way over the top and underneath the bridge, and pull. Now if you have forgotten to tie a knot in your side that you're working on, the other way that you could tell which side is next is, can you see that there's bars on either side? So there's a bar at the top here and there's a bar here, so you can start to see these like stitch bars, if you like. So this one is higher up, this one is lower down. Whichever is the side with the lowest down bar, vertical bar, that's the side that you're working on as well. So if you see the bar at the bottom, it's this side next. So if I just do that side of the knot, I can show you then that the bar will then switch to the other side. So if I just make that first half of the knot and tighten it down, bring it back up so you can see now that the bar is the lowest on the left hand side now. So these vertical bars, you can see that is now lowest on the left hand side, so I know that it is my left side that I'm working on, and that is the side with the knot in it. Okay, so I'm going to finish off my square knot. Now a full square knot is a knot on the right hand side and a knot on the left, or a P and then a Q. Okay, so you can see there that we're starting to get quite a lot of length in our stitches. Now obviously the thicker the cord, the bigger the sort of like the stitches are going to be. So if you've only got like really fine cord, you'll have to do quite a few stitches to get a little bit of length. Now if you were wanting to start to add beads onto this, okay, so you could macrame all the way down if you wanted to, a little bit like this. So you can see that all my square stitches are sitting on top of each other. We can't see anything because both the lazy strand and the working strand are exactly the same colour. Like I say, you will see a little tiny bit peeking through if you're using different colours, but it's only if you get very close. So you could just macrame all the way down your bracelet to the end, or you could macrame halfway and then add a bead onto there and then carry on macrameing around. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch this out to a piece with some beads on there so you can see how to macrame around a bead. So I've added some round beads to this lazy cord in the middle, and what we're going to do is we're just going to place one of our beads up to the top. Now if you are wanting to make a full beaded macrame bracelet like so, what I always suggest is to do just a couple of rows of full knots. So we can see we've got about four full square knots either side. Just keep a record of how many you've done either side, because we need to match it up when we get to the other side of the bracelet, so we don't have different lengths on either side. But if you wanted to make something like this beautiful beaded macrame square knot, then like I say, just do a few little stitches first, a few little knots first, and that then will make it a little bit more comfortable to wear, so you haven't got beads starting right next to sort of like the bony part of your wrist. So just make sure that you're like about an inch of macrame and then start to add your beads. So to add your macrame around a bead, it's exactly the same, nothing changes. We just make sure that we pop our letter P and our letter Q and have the bead where we want it in the first place, so right up at the very top. So we're going to keep it there, and then we're going to create our letter P, bring it around underneath the bridge and pull tight. Now we don't want to pull too tight here, because what we don't want to happen is these cords to slip up or be under too much tension and they not sit perfectly around your bead framing it. And then we're going to take our letter Q and we're going to bring that exactly the same. So finish our square knot underneath. And now at this point, if you're not happy with the tension that you've got going around the bead, you can sort of like just adjust it before you tighten this one. So the first square knot is sort of like the one that's going to frame the bead. The second square knot, so the letter Q, is the one that's going to tighten it and keep it in place. Okay, so you can see there it's kept in place beautifully around the bead. So we're now going to move our next bead up. If we wanted to just have one bead in between, one knot, square knot in between. If we wanted to have two square knots, like in the example that I've got now, then we're going to add another square knot in between. But just for demo purposes, I'm just going to use that one square knot in between and then place the next one up. And again, my letter P, bringing that across underneath the bridge, and then we can go around and make the letter Q and tighten that down. So that is how you're going to encapsulate round or irregular shaped beads around in your macrame. Now if you want something like a coin or something that you can sit above the cord, so you can see that these are sitting proud above the macrame. Okay, now all we do with that is we bring rather than framing the bead with the cords, we're going to bring them underneath. So if I just add on a couple of these beads, and I can show you how this one will sit. Just put two on. So just bring those, and then again just secure my cord at the bottom. So when we're going around something that's like got flat sides and we want it to sit proud up above the cord, we're going to do our square knots. We're still going to form the square knot around the bead and underneath. So we're starting with that letter P. And then when we get to this point, rather than framing, we're going to just place both of those cords underneath and just pull it tight. So you just have to sort of like say to the cords to sit under. Okay, so it's now sitting proud on top, so it gives it a little bit more of a bed to sit on, if you like. And then making our letter Q, and again tighten the bead. And if I just turn that to the side, you can see now how that's sitting proud on top of the lazy strand rather than sort of like in between the lazy strand, like so. So that working cord has lifted it up a little bit higher. So we should do one more the same. I'm just going to bring our letter P and then bringing it underneath. And when we get to this point, rather than framing with the cords, we're going to place the cords underneath and just give it a little pull so that the cords then sit as like a little base for a little bed for that coin to sit on. We're going to go and do the letter Q the same, so you can see there how different they look from the side. So we've got these which are encapsulated around and these which are sitting on top. So a completely different look. Now the third look that you can do is if you add a bead up every half a knot. So what I've done with this one, let me just move that out of the way. What I've done with this one is every single time I've done a half knot, I've pushed a bead up. So say this is the knot for the letter P, this is the knot for letter Q, P, Q, P, Q, P, Q, all the way down. So I've done every half a knot, I've placed a bead up. So that is a different way, and you can see how different all three of them are going to look if you're going to add beads onto your lazy strand. So it is a really, really great way of adding some a different kind of look to your pieces, how they can look completely different. So to finish your bracelets off, so when we make our sliding bracelet, our sliding clasp at the end, so what these are is just an extra little bit of cord. Now as you can see here, I've just decorated this one, so I've actually put a coin going through both of the lazy strands, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. So I've done that the same as I've done the rest of the bracelet, or I've just used the actual square knot itself as the sliding part. So it's just a little separate section all by itself, but it goes around the lazy cords to create this clasp. So we need to finish our bracelet off first. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly do another couple of square knots, full square knots, just to finish this bracelet off so it matches the top. Like I say, if you are doing this as a full bracelet, then just make sure that you match what you've done at the top to what you're doing at the bottom, just so it's nice and equal. Remembering that it's always the side with either the lowest bar that we're working on, or if you remember to put a knot in your cord, the side with the knot in it. So let's say that we've got our full bracelet there. It's a very short bracelet, but you get the gist. Okay, so you would carry on going until you've got the actual length of your piece, minus your sliding bar. So if you're making a bracelet which is, let's say, 8 inches long, the whole thing is 8 inches long, we need to make sure that we're just taking away an inch of that 8 inches for our clasp itself. So we're only actually knotting 7 inches and we're leaving an inch for our little Solomon's bar or our sliding clasp. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just start to cut away these 2 working strands. So we never cut the lazy strand. I'm just going to take this off of the board. Okay, so we've got our lazy strand going through the middle, and we've got our working strand which we've now finished. So you can see here we've finished our working strands here and here. We now need to cut these away and seal the ends. So whether that's sealing them with your glue or your thread zapper, that's entirely up to yourself which one you're going to use. So let me just get the light to come back normal. There we go. So I'm going to just use a thread zapper just because I find that that's the neatest way for me to finish a piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one of those working cords and I'm going to trim it away so that there's about 1 millimetre of cord left. Okay, so you can see there that little tiny millimetre of cord that's left. And now I'm going to take my thread zapper and I'm just going to melt the end of that cord down into the bracelet, and I'm just using the end of my thread zapper to seal it. Now that's actually melted that cord onto itself and created like a stopper. Now the other way you can do it, like I say, is with your jewellery glue, but I prefer the melted method because I find that it stays more secure. So again, cutting that down so we've got about 1 millimetre, and then just touching it with your thread zapper and pushing it in so that it's nice and sealed. So we've now got our working cords are cut away, we've only got our lazy cords left. So to create our Solomon's bar, we need our macrame board back in. And the easiest way, if you've never made one before, is to place your bracelet underneath your macrame board and then just cross your cords over. So what we want, if I just take that away, I can show you. What we want is we want our working cords to sit, our lazy cords to sit side by side and to create a little bar of macrame square knot over both of the cords while they're sitting side by side to then create our clasp. So you can see that we've got a full bracelet. So if we were to place it down here, you can see we've got our full bracelet and we've got our cords which are crossed over, and then these two ends here are the bits that we're going to use as our pulls to pull the cord open and closed. So you can do it when it's flat on the board like that, so you can just lay it down and then do your sliding knot. But if you're unsure, you need it like placed down properly so it's nothing's going to move, just use a corner of either your board or your clipboard, whichever you're using, just to create the little section above the over the side here. So just use a corner and just go across the side. Now just going to loosen them a little bit so I can get the cords underneath, and I'm going to use the pink cord again just so you can see it properly. So I'm just going to lift up these two cords and I'm going to start exactly the same, but this time I'm not going to place a knot onto the cord. So you remember before we did an overhand knot to keep the cords in place. We're not going to do that this time. We're just going to start with our letter P and then under the bridge and make our first part of our knot, and then the letter Q again, just lifting that up so it's easy for you to see, and then through into the letter Q, picking up the end. So that's one full square knot. I'm just going to do about 4 or 5 square knots. So just going up and under that little bridge, and then again. So you would do this for about 1 inch. You don't really need to do more than 1 inch. It's only for your clasp section. So you can do more if you want, but that will then eat up into the size of your actual bracelet itself. If you have made your bracelet too small, then the way to get around making your bracelet bigger is to make a bigger sliding clasp, because that will add length to the finished piece. Okay, so you can see there that I've just got a few square knots over the top, and if I just take this off of the board, you should be able to see then how this is going to work. So I've got my 2 strands of lazy cord, and you can see that when I pull the lazy cord, my little Solomon's bar, which is the other name for it, or my sliding clasp, is just there, and it's just holding both of those lazy cords side by side and stopping anything else from sort of like moving around. So it's gripping onto itself, but it's allowing the cords underneath to slide, and then to use the two end threads to close it. So we're just going to quickly trim these two little bits of working cord away. Now again, just make sure that you're cutting the correct cords. We don't want to cut anything else that we don't need to, and I'm just going to zapper those down, or you can use your glue if you're using your glue. Just melt those so they're sealed and it's not going to go anywhere. And now what we want to do, the only thing that's left to do now is to actually put beads on the end of our lazy cord. Now, just to measure how big you need your lazy cord when it's fully open must be able to go over the top of your hand, and you can then see that you can tighten them up. Now if you've got the beads on the end, which I suggest everybody has beads on the end because it's easier to sort of like tighten it up, and it's not a fiddly clasp to do at all. Then you can see these are just going to sit down on the bottom. I'm just going to tighten that up a little bit more, and you can see it's there. It's quite easy to place on. So entirely up to you what beads you use, but I've just got these to hand, so all I'm going to do is just thread these on, and then, like I say, open it up to the widest amount that you need to be able to fit it onto your wrist, and then tie a knot in the end, and then the same on the other side, and you'll be finished with something that looks like this. So your beads then will help to weigh down the two little ends that you're going to pull to tighten and open the piece, and it slides really beautifully. Now if you are using glue, just be careful that you don't put the glue too far down into your little sliding bar, because that will actually glue it onto your lazy strand and you won't be able to open and close your piece. It's easy. So that is a simple way of making a corded bracelet using your macrame square knot technique, and by using different beads in different places on your lazy cord, you can create completely different looks. So thanks ever so much for watching this tutorial on how to create your macrame square knots, and how by placing the cords in different places around your cords, around your beads, sorry, or under your beads, creates a completely different look. If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons and tap that notification bell so you never miss out on one of my latest tutorials, hints and tips or unboxings. So until the next one, thank you ever so much for watching, and take some time for yourself and relax and craft.